What is the scariest encounter with another human you have ever experienced? I got chased down by the neighborhood delinquent teen with a gun when I was walking home from the bus stop with friends. I was 10. My friends were 10 over 11 years old too. We ran to a house for help. A middle-aged woman answered and refused to let us in or help us. She said it could be a prank. We told her it wasn't, but she was convinced we were trying to get in her house and rob her. We ran farther to my friend's house. Her mom happened to be off work early and was home. She called the police. I got to ride in a cop car and watch 2 cops take down this 17-year-old piece of shit into the pavement. I woke up hungover as hell in my apartment in Philly to a big guy with a gun pointed at me telling me to give him money. It honestly took me a few seconds to realize what was happening, and as I frantically searched for my wallet, he took my backpack with my laptop and also stole a few Eagles/Flyers jerseys. The weirdest thing was that he stole all my socks as well. Was riding my bike to school taking the bike trail when I noticed a guy leaning against a light post. Thought nothing of it since I've taken this trail pretty much every day throughout high school. Anyway, I'm riding and things go dark. Turns out as I passed by the guy pistol whipped me, woke up to him trying to take my feet out of the straps of my bike. He notices I'm awake and immediately points his gun at me asking me to hand my bike over. I resisted at first telling him that my mom had just bought it for me after begging so long for it. He took it anyway. Still bugs me to this day. Edit. Didn't expect my story to take off. Some minor details for people wondering. The bike was a Doors SSTL. I was 16 at the time. I'm 23 now. I had clipped pedals at the time, which is why he was struggling to take my feet out. I live in a not so nice area where stuff like this is not uncommon. Fontana/Rialto, CA. The guy had face tats and dressed like a thug. He would stick out like a sore thumb riding a competitive fixed gear bicycle. I'm sure he stole it to sell rather than personal use. I also called the police and they came over to file a report. I didn't notice I had blood going down my ear, probably adrenaline, till the cop pointed it out. He took pictures of the split in my head for the report. If anyone knows if the police station or county keeps reports like this on file for a while, I would be happy to try and get the pictures in police report. I was investigating a fire for an insurance company in a fourplex in North STL. North STL is a bad area. It was clearly an arson. I had 5 separate, unconnected fires. I'd been there for a while, taking photos and doing my thing. I was drawing my diagram in the building when I hear 2 guys walking by the building on the other side of the wall. I'm straining to hear what they're saying, since it could be pertinent to my investigation. The 2 guys get to the rear of the building, where the fire department had ripped out the wall to be able to extinguish hot spots they'd found. I can clearly see them both standing there talking. They start to kick through the debris on the ground and one starts saying how some dumb bitch had snitched on his buddy for setting this fire. He starts telling the other guy about how he's going to deal with her and pulls a goddamned pistol out of his waistband. At this point, I'm frozen in fear, about to shit my pants, hoping that they don't look 90 degrees and see me standing there like a jackass. So I crouch down as low I can without making noise and wait. They continue to talk about how it's bullshit she told the cops on him and blah blah blah. Finally a car drives by and I use the sound of it to get out of the house out the front door, which unfortunately wasn't super quiet since most of the floor had collapsed and I was wearing fire boots. I get to my truck across the street. I'm sitting in the driver's seat trying to unclench my butthole when the guy with the gun walks around the side of the house to the front porch, sits down, and aims it at me. I turned the truck on and got the fuck out of there. I ended up going back about an hour later to see if they were gone, because I had to finish my scene. Still top 5 scariest moment of my career so far. Edit. For those asking why I went back, my boss would never have let me turn in a report without a diagram or samples, so it was go back then or later. I don't think the claim was denied, since it was a rental company and no one was supposed to be living there. And yes, I called the police, but things burn down in North City so often that it gets ignored a good percentage of the time. Also, I have no idea how it turned out. I didn't stop and ask for names. My house was broken into while we were having dinner. I was about 7 years old at the time. My mom answered the door because she thought it was her friend. Turns out to be robbers in masks with guns. I was pretty small at the time and no one noticed me. I noped out of there and walked straight into my bedroom and locked the door. I think I was in shock at the time and didn't know what to do. In retrospect, I should have dialed 911. The first apartment I was in, I moved in right after some cowwalkers. After living there for a bit, my cowwalker's jacked ass drug dealer showed up pissed off. When I answered the door, he wanted to come in and talk to my cowwalker. I said it was just me and my GF. I didn't want to wake her up, so I took the conversation outside. Turns out, he just got out of jail and needed $200. I talked him down saying that $200 wasn't worth any more time and to just let it go after what felt like an eternity. He finally thanked me and left. I didn't sleep well until I left that apartment. Last year I moved from a dense urban area to a really pretty underpopulated rural one. I got super into trail running. There's a big circular route that I like a lot in the local nature preserve, and over the summer I was on an early morning run there when I passed a dude sitting on a rock slightly off the trail. He looked exceedingly normal, street clothes, hat, boots etc, and I figured him for a hiker. All good. So I make my way down the path, around, uphill into this nice overlook where I usually stop to drink from the fountain. It's when I'm bent over at the fountain that I hear a twig snap and I straighten up to see that guy crouched over and stepping through the woods off the clearing like he's trying to creep up on me. I bolted. The sprint back was the most terrifying experience of my life. Obviously, I don't know if I lost him or if he gave chase at all. The police never found anyone matching his description and I don't run anywhere near there anymore. I was driving through a somewhat rough neighborhood at night, late after a movie, and while sitting at a light we saw this guy in a beat up car take a bump of cocaine next to us. We make eye contact. As the light turns green he merged behind us and then proceeds to follow us around flashing his lights and honking his horn for several blocks. We pull up to another red light, he pulls up next to us yelling at us to roll down the window. Turns out he just wanted to let us know we had a tail light out and then drove away. My first apartment was part of a complex that was U-shaped with a large grassy area in the middle. The neighborhood kids would run around and play in the grass a lot. One day I was sitting on my stoop talking on the phone when one of the kids fell over, grabbed his foot and started crying. He was maybe 5 or 6. He had stepped on a bottle cap and sliced open his foot. I took him inside, had him sit on the edge of the tub, washed his cut and put some Neosporin on it and a band-aid and sent him on his way. A few hours later there is a knock on my door. When I answered, a massive skinhead with a tattoo of a pentagram on his neck was standing there with his chest out. The boy was peeking around one of his giant thighs pointing at me. He stuck his finger in my chest and yelled, "Did you take my boy in your fucking house? That's my son. Did you give him a fucking bath? Look at his foot." I shrieked. He cut his foot. I watched the cut. He inspected the kid's foot then asked me point what exactly happened. I stumbled through the story. Then he just said, "Alright then." He shook my hand with a vice grip and I never saw him or his son again. Went down to the local creek with my friend. We were probably 10 or so. The local creepy teenager shows up, drunk out of his mind. I immediately knew this was bad. He mumbled something under his breath, and I looked at my friend with the "we need to get the fuck out of here" look. He stepped closer towards us and another guy, older and probably twice the size, ran up and grabbed him. He told us to go home and not come back. Later the creepy guy was involved in a robbery that turned into murder, and I still feel so thankful to the other guy who was there. Saturday at Barnes & Noble, I had my son ready on the changing table when another man walks into the restroom and I see him just eyeing my boy. I decided to wait to uncover my son. The man's body language bothered me as he slowed down on washing his hands, drying and hesitantly walked out. I kept my eyes on him as I placed myself in front of my son. Me and my boyfriend came back at like 2 AM from a night out. We were both quite drunk and stumbled into the hallway to the elevator when we see drops of something on the floor. It definitely was blood. Fresh and wet. The elevator button and door were covered in bloody handprints as well. My boyfriend called the elevator, pushing me aside not knowing what would be in it. Luckily nothing except for a puddle of blood. The elevator came from the 5th floor. So we went investigating. The trail of blood ended at a door with huge hand smears of blood on the door. It took all our courage to ring. Not the nicest place to live. Robbery? But I'm so glad we did. An elderly man opened the door. He looked like straight out of a horror movie. Covered in blood from head to toe. His gray sweater was red. His hair was wet. His shoes were filled with blood. We immediately sobered up. I called an ambulance which arrived in 2 minutes. My BF went inside the flat helping the man sit down. There was so much blood, I have never seen that in my life. We didn't know what happened to him until we met him yesterday properly for the first time. Recognized my BF's glasses. He was drunk, wanted to ride his bike home, crashed somehow and got a huge cut on his head. He takes heart medicine which thins his blood, that's why he lost so much. If we wouldn't have rung the doorbell he would have bled to death. He actually gifted us money and a super expensive bottle of champagne for something completely self-explanatory.